Good morning and welcome to the Deafblind International 18th World Conference. I am thrilled to have been invited to act as your MC for this important event. I have some exciting news. I just come from my first week of training my third guide dog, Woody, a Labradoodle from Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind, to attend this great event. I have Usher syndrome, resulting in 10% hearing capacity, and I have 4% vision remaining. I also have 16 gold medals, 9 world records, and over 80 medals from competing against able-bodied athletes. I have also had the privilege of being a Canadian rower, track and running, and tandem cycling. And I have recently just came back from South Africa representing Canada for blind golf and placed 7th in the world. I have traveled the world as a motivational speaker doing over 400 presentations. I have traveled over the world as a motivational speaker, advocating and for the deafblind community, but I am especially proud to welcome you all to Canada and to my home, our national capital of Ottawa. I will be with you for the next 4 days, and I look forward to getting to know you, to learn from you, and to be with you and to celebrate with you. It is now my pleasure to introduce you the Chair of Deafblind Work of Ontario, the 2023 DBI World Conference host. Please welcome to the stage, Kathy Prohl.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning and welcome. I am Kathy Prohl, chairperson of the Deafblind Network of Ontario, the host of the 18th Deafblind International World Conference. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all here to celebrate this conference with the theme of Global Connections, the future in our hands. The Deafblind Network of Ontario, also known as DBNO, is comprised of service organizations and affiliated partners in Ontario with a focus on services for people who are deafblind. The Deafblind Network of Ontario is committed to ensuring that all Ontarians who are deafblind have equal access to high-quality intervener services. Outside my volunteer position as chairperson with the DBNO, I am the Chief Executive Officer with the Deafblind and Sensory Support Network of Canada, otherwise known as Sensity. Sensity has been providing intervener services to people who are deafblind across the province of Ontario for over 30 years. We were formerly known as the Canadian Deafblind Association Ontario chapter. 4 years ago, the Deafblind Network of Ontario had the honor of being named hosts of the next World Conference. Little did we know what was in store for us in the coming months and years. A worldwide pandemic. The uncertainty of when the pandemic would end and what the implications might be were truly unknown. Was the conference going to be viable? Would it be virtual or hybrid? And of course, the challenge of managing a pre-pandemic budget where the cost of labor, food, and travel have all increased substantially. Coincidentally, the day that we were here in Ottawa doing our site inspection for the conference venue, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a worldwide pandemic. Despite these challenges, the Deafblind Network of Ontario is pleased to present this conference to you. It is our hope that during this week together, you learn a lot, build connections, and foster new relationships. A few years ago, this would have been a rather different audience. We had to make the decision on how best to deliver this conference to a global audience. In the beginning, we offered a hybrid model to allow both virtual and in-person experiences. However, it seemed as the world transitioned back to normal, people wanted to travel again, and all of you here before me were so excited to come together to connect, collaborate, and network with like-minded friends and colleagues. In 2019, it was our great honor to accept the conference tile from our colleagues at Able Australia during the last World Conference. You do not realize how stressful transporting the conference tile can be until you feel that sense of relief when it returns home to Canada, intact in your luggage, rather than in a million pieces. At the end of the conference, the Deafblind Network of Ontario will be presenting the conference tile to the next host country. But you're going to have to wait a few more days to find out where that will be. While at the conference, share your thoughts, contribute to discussions, and network and learn as much as you can. When you return home, all the conference materials will be available on the Deafblind Network of Ontario website. And remember, the future is in our hands. I will now pass it over to Jennifer Robbins, who will share a few words with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. 4 years ago, when we all gathered in Australia, it was hard to believe how much our lives would change just 6 months later. But here we are after a pandemic, together again, and it feels good to return to normal. It's been a long road to get where we are today, but I'm sure you share in my excitement that we are all here this week in Canada's capital, Ottawa. It is for this reason that the theme for the 18th Deafblind International World Conference, Global Connections, The Future in Our Hands, is so appropriate. The deafblind international community has reconnected for this week, and the future looks bright indeed. My name is Jennifer Robbins, and I am the Executive Director of Canadian Helen Keller Centre, also known as CHKC, which is located in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We provide many programs and services for individuals who are deafblind. Most notably, we operate an accessible and affordable 16-unit apartment complex for those who are deafblind and are slated to open a new state-of-the-art apartment building with 56 units next year in the Toronto area. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Deafblind Network of Ontario and the Chair of the 18th International World Conference Planning Committee. We are thrilled you are joining us this week in our nation's capital, Ottawa. I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of the Conference Planning Committee, of who, without their gallant efforts this week, would not be possible. Thank you to Kathy Prohl, CEO of Sensity and member of the Scientific Committee. Marta Zaharia, President of the Intervenor Organization of Ontario and Consumer Support Specialist at CHKC. She is also the Chair of the Communications Committee. Monty Hardy, CEO from Bob Rumble Center of Excellence for the Deaf and Chair of the Sponsorship and Trade Show Committee. Roxana Spruitt, CEO from Deafblind Ontario Services and our Conference Networks lead. Penny Bennett, a consumer representative. Betty Leeson, Manager, Operational Standards from Deafblind Community Services and Chair of the Volunteer Committee. Alan Wareham, Supervisor, Deafblind Intervenor Services from Canadian Hearing Services and Chair of the Accessibility and Digital Technology Committee. And our conference planning lead, Betty Ann Scherer from CanPlan Incorporated. I'd also like to thank the Scientific Committee for their dedicated work to bring this week to fruition. Saskia Damon, co-chair, Walter Wittich, co-chair, Kathy Prohl, Namita Jacobs, Ricard Lopez, Jerry Petroff, Suelam Tasega, Hile Bulin Selling, and Moa Walquist. I'd also like to take a moment to also thank our sponsors. Our Diamond Plus sponsors are Sensity and CHKC. Our Diamond sponsors are CNIB and Lions McGuinness House. Our Platinum sponsors, CNIB Deafblind Community Services, Deafblind Ontario Services, and Bob Rumble Foundation. Our Silver sponsors, Consortium Centre Jules Léger and Canadian Deafblind Association. Our Bronze sponsors, ANC Modular, Canadian Hearing Services, and Bob Rumble Centre. And our supporting sponsors, George Brown College and National Research and Training Center on Blindness and Low Vision. Our schedule for this year's conference is packed. During our week together, we have a promising social program, including a family night, a movie night, and a gala dinner and awards celebration. Among many other extraordinary speakers who will touch upon a variety of topics of interest to the deafblind community. The education program is designed to explore lived experiences and to share knowledge on various areas concerning the deafblind population, such as research, mental health, employment, accessibility, communication, and much more. During this week, we hope that all of us engage in knowledge sharing and that we grow and learn about the various topics and issues that concern our community. I can't stress enough how wonderful it is to be here in Ottawa after 4 years of planning, of being uncertain during a pandemic of how we would pull this off in the midst of a blurry future. But we are all here today because we made it through that difficult time. Congratulate yourselves and have a great week. Welcome to the 18th International World Conference, Deafblind International World Conference. We are here to form global connections as the future is in our hands. I would like to introduce the Honorable Senator Yona Martin, who is a Conservative Senator of British Columbia, appointed by the Right Honorable Stephen Harper in 2009. She is the first parliamentarian of Korean descent in Canadian history. She has been the Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the Senate since 2015 and previously served as the Deputy Leader of the government. Senator Martin is also a dedicated supporter of the deafblind community and who in 2013, alongside the Honorable Vim Kochar and Senator Jim Munson, co-sponsored a motion that recognized June as National Deafblind Awareness Month in Canada. Please join me in welcoming Senator Yona Martin.
Good morning, everyone. Bon matin tout le monde. 여러분 안녕하세요. In my native language of Korean, in Korea, where I was born. I know there are some members that are visiting here from South Korea. On behalf of the Senate of Canada, I'm truly honored to be here this morning with all of you at the Deafblind International World Conference hosted by the Deafblind Network of Ontario. What a wonderful theme of global connections, that the future is truly in our hands, in your hands specifically. On behalf of the Senate of Canada, welcome and sincere greetings to all of you. Au nom du Sénat du Canada, je vous souhaite la bienvenue et vous offre mes sincères salutations. Today we recognize the resiliency and strength that individuals living with deafblindness face each and every day. We come together to raise awareness for those who live with deafblind challenges in their lives and the families and individuals, many of you in this room, who work closely with them. In 2015, as Jennifer explained, I had the honor of presenting a motion in the Senate of Canada, which was unanimously adopted to recognize every June as Deafblind Awareness Month across Canada. It's fitting as June is the birth month of Helen Keller, the strong, heroic woman whose determination and leadership made a difference in the world and inspired many to follow in her footsteps. Today, many communities and organizations, including the ones that you represent at this conference, have championed this cause with events being celebrated in jurisdictions across Canada and around the world. New technologies, products, services, and rights are helping deafblind Canadians in their everyday lives. And while other progress has been made, there is still much work to do to ensure that they have the opportunity to enjoy life to the greatest extent possible. And you heard from one of the co-MCs, Kevin, an incredible athlete, a Canadian athlete of the example of the kind of lives that one can lead. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to become aware of and work with amazing organizations that support the deafblind community and whose outstanding leadership, dedication, and commitment to serving and advocating for these consumers will ensure that they too have equal rights and opportunities. I want to take a moment to acknowledge two of these outstanding Canadian organizations. The Canadian Helen Keller Centre has become a pillar of strength and resources for so many individuals and families. I also want to commend the Deafblind Network of Ontario for all their tireless advocacy work that has made this important international conference possible. And you heard the list of the conference committee as well as the scientific committee, just the sponsors, the supporters. All of this would not have been possible without everyone's collective effort. This conference is a time to celebrate the strength, spirit, and heart of the more than 65,000 Canadians and many others who are living with and those caring for someone with deafblindness. We recognize the challenges they face every day and the perseverance they show in living life to the fullest. Over the years, I've also had the honor to meet Canadians living with deafblind challenges and continue to be inspired by these incredible people. As I look around the room today, I'm once again inspired by the amazing national and international community. All of you make up that community, and there are others who are not able to be here today. But together, I know that the future is in good hands. You are truly an inspiration to all of us, and I'm proud to serve you as a Canadian senator and to be your voice in the Senate of Canada, in Parliament, and in other places where the opportunities and needs arise. Que votre conférence soit des plus productives et enrichissantes. Best wishes for a truly productive and meaningful conference. Thank you. Merci. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Senator. We truly appreciate all the support you provide to the deafblind community. I have a small gift for you. Thank you. Thank you. I now call to the stage Diane Bergeron, President of CNIB Guide Dogs, to bring greetings on behalf of CNIB.
Thank you, and please bear with me while I set up my technology. Okay. Good morning, esteemed guests, fellow advocates, and most importantly, members of the deafblind community. As mentioned, my name is Diane Bergeron, and I am joined here at the podium with my beautiful golden retriever guide dog, Carla. It is our absolute honor to stand here before you today as a representative of the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. I am thrilled to extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to all of you on behalf of the CNIB and in the entire Canadian deafblind community. We are truly delighted to have this significant event hosted in the beautiful city of Ottawa, Canada, for the first time. This conference being held in our country marks a momentous occasion for us. It symbolizes the growing recognition of the integral and valuable contributions and unique challenges faced by the deafblind community in Canada and around the world. At CNIB, our commitment to the deafblind community runs deep, with deafblind services being an integral part of our organizational mandates for more than 60 years. We believe that progress is made when we come together as a united force. That's why we eagerly embrace the opportunity to collaborate with all of you, to learn from each other, and to collectively work towards creating a more inclusive world. I want to emphasize our profound gratitude for the opportunity to be here and to participate in this conference. As we gather to share knowledge, experiences, and ideas, let us reaffirm our commitment to the deafblind community and pledge to work hand in hand to overcome challenges and achieve greater inclusivity and empowerment for all. Together, we can make a lasting difference and create a brighter future for the deafblind community worldwide. And now it is my privilege and extreme pleasure to introduce your keynote speaker this morning. Mike Lipkin is president of Environics Lipkin, a global research and motivation company based in Toronto, Ontario. He is also an international strategic coach, guide, and potentiator to high performers everywhere. His passion is creating breakthroughs with others by any means possible. He combines his personal experience of having spoken to over 1 million people in 67 countries with his rigorous research and personal mastery. He has written no less than 8 best-selling books on high performance, including his latest one, which is the topic of today's program. Mike was raised in Johannesburg, South Africa. He immigrated to Canada in Toronto in 2001, where he now lives with his wife, Hillary. Mike describes the Potentiator as an everyday superhero whose superpowers is to enable others to perform at their best. He believes that that is how breakthroughs are created in a post-pandemic world. In this inspirational session, Mike is going to show you how to succeed by making others successful while you live your best life. Specifically, he will introduce you to the 5 Potentiator Practices that will multiply your impact and scale your results. I'd like to now welcome to the podium Mike.
Diane, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. As you heard, my name is Mike Lipkin. I love the comment on my title slide that had me as president of Environics Lipkin and a really good guy. I hope that that's the way you feel after my 60-minute talk is over. My intention over the next 60 minutes is to share with you what I've learned in my role as coach, motivator, communicator, and connector, and all the research that I've done into those people who are bringing people together to create breakthroughs in a post-pandemic world. I have been doing this work for 30 years, but this is the most important talk I have ever given, because I'm giving it now and I'm giving it to you. You'll see on my first slide, the title is, "It's Always Day One." Now, that is a quote from Jeff Bezos, who's the founder and the ex-CEO of Amazon. But think about it. Wherever you've come from, it has served a single purpose, and that is to bring you here today. And over the next few days, everyone in this room will be creating a new future for themselves and everyone in their communities, and it's an honor for me to be part of this amazing moment. So the title of my talk today is The Potentiator. Chances are you haven't heard of that word before, because I made that word up. But think about all the new words that have been made up over the past 3 years. We are now using a whole new vocabulary. And I know that when you leave here by the end of the week, you will have a lot more words that you can use as you connect with your global community. So words are the connective tissue that bring people together. The more words we know, the more distinctions we can use to create breakthroughs with others. So let me give you the definition of the word potentiator, and it's someone who increases other people's strength and effectiveness. Everyone in this room is someone who increases other people's strength and effectiveness. It is someone who brings people together so they can achieve more. There is a reason why we are here in person, right? People need to be with other people. It's also someone who helps others actualize their dreams. During COVID, many of us lost sight of our dreams as we sought to just survive day by day, but now it's time to dream again, and what better opportunity than right here, right now. And a potentiator, very importantly, is someone who creates breakthroughs by helping others play at their best. The highest accolade, the highest compliment we can pay anyone is that they create an environment for the people around them to play at their best. That's why we're here today. So, I don't know if anyone in this room speaks Japanese. I know if you are, in fact, from South Korea, this makes sense to folks from Korea, it makes sense to folks from China, and it certainly makes sense to folks from Japan. But this is a very famous Japanese proverb that means ichigo, ichie. And that means one life, one meeting. And that means every meeting only happens one time in a lifetime. So this meeting never happens again. Not just this meeting, but every meeting. So every interaction needs to be a masterpiece, because that interaction only happens one time in a lifetime. And I'll share with you my ultimate ichigo, ichie moment. Back in June of 2002, it's incredible, 21 years ago, I had the great privilege of doing some work with the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and my payment was I got to meet Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela, as I'm sure you are aware, served 27 years in prison because he believed in the ideals of democracy. He was willing to die for the ideals of democracy. So I wanted to know what sustains a man for 27 years, and how does he keep his dream alive and his love of other people alive, including those people who put him there. So I said, Mr. Mandela, what was it like suffering for all those years in prison? And Mr. Mandela looked at me and he said, Michael, I didn't suffer. I prepared to live my life every day, so when I was released, I would transform my nation into the kind of nation I dreamt of it becoming. And I never forgot those words. He prepared to live his life every day so that he could transform his nation when he was released. Now, all of us, in some shape, manner, or form, can transform the space around us. Maybe we can impact one person, or maybe we can impact the world. As someone once said to me, to the world, you may just be one person, but to one person, you may just be the world. So you probably know what WWMD means, right? Those 4 letters appear on the screen. Simply means, what would Mandela do? So when you're at your best, you're unleashing your inner Mandela. When you're at your worst, well, you're just being at your worst. So I want to share with you 5 potentiator practices. I talk about practices rather than principles, because how do we know what someone's principle is? By what they do. So when you look at me, you don't know what I'm thinking right now. You don't know what I'm feeling right now. You are judging what I'm thinking and feeling based on my practices. So remember, we are not judged by our feelings, we are judged by our actions. And I like the word practice. It's defined by the dictionary as systematically exercising for the purpose of acquiring skill or proficiency. So right now, I am operating in the most important arena, which is I'm giving a talk to honored members of this community. But I'm also practicing. I'm very intentional in the way I'm communicating. And I will tell you, I'm better than I was last week. But I'm not as good as I'm going to be next week. Because every presentation is an opportunity to become even better. So if you see every day, every interaction as an opportunity to become even better, then you stand a very good chance of becoming the potentiator. So this is the very first potentiator practice. And I call it Know Your Game. Now, I make a living using words. So when I say know your game, I want to know what the word game means. So I looked up the meaning of the word game. And on the screen, there is a woman who is crawling through an obstacle course as part of a very challenging race. And the words define game as a physical or mental competition conducted according to rules, an area of expertise, willing or ready to proceed, having or showing a resolute spirit. In other words, we have an inner game and we have an outer game. When I think about all the incredible people that I've met so far, I realize how powerful your inner game is. There are people in this room who have extraordinary will, extraordinary courage. And then we also need an outer game, which is our skill or our expertise. So again, I want to reinforce a very important thought. Your inner game determines your outer game. The greater your level of will, the greater your level of skill. Muhammad Ali said, the will is stronger than the skill. So all of us here today are here because we want to achieve service excellence. We want to serve the people in our community the best way we can. And so I want to share with you, over the last 30 years, I've discovered there are 5 levels of service excellence. At the basic level, there's something or someone who I just brand as a professional visitor. They're nice and they take orders. Nothing wrong with that, but that's at the basic level. At the next level, there's someone who I call a product pusher. They are knowledgeable, but they push what suits them. At the next level, there's someone who I brand as a satisficer. That's not a spelling mistake. They do just enough to suffice. When you deal with them, you're not unhappy, but you're not happy. They do just enough. Then, at the 4th level, is someone who's actually a partner. They become a valued, trusted advisor. And if all you do is make it to partner, you will be very successful. But at the highest level, there is someone who we call a thought leader, someone who is perceived as best in the game. So I want you to think of your game, and I want you to think of what it means to be the best in your game, and then aspire to that level. It really doesn't matter if you never achieve thought leader, but we must aspire to being thought leader. You know, when I was growing up, I did karate. I never got past orange belt, which is the 3rd belt. You get white, yellow, orange, and that's where I ended my karate career. But I had a sensei, a wonderful man called Stan Schmidt, and he told me that less than 1,000th of all people who start karate make it to the ultimate level, which is black belt 10th dan. And he said to me, Mike, you may never make it to black belt 10th dan, but you must aspire to making it there. So, that's know your game. Let's go to the 2nd potentiator practice. And this is what I brand as build robust resilience. Now, today, we have already heard and celebrated the resilience of so many of you in this community. But there's a difference between resilience and robust resilience. And let me explain that to you. So robust resilience means that you move towards the issue. You swim towards the wave. You walk or you run or you move towards the fire. You move towards the problem so that you can preempt it before it becomes a bigger problem. People with robust resilience believe they have agency to resolve the issue by taking action now. One of my favorite quotes is, procrastinate later, do it now. All of us are going to be confronted with major crises and minor crises every day. What I have learned in my 3 decades of doing this work is that potentiators act now. They know that an imperfect act in this moment is better than a perfect act that you may never take. So robust resilience means you swim towards the wave. And if you think about surfers, and on the screen there is a wave and there's a surfer surfing down the wave. But if you've ever witnessed surfers in the ocean, they are continually looking for the next wave. And did you know that a surfer will spend, on average, 3 hours in the water, and in those 3 hours, they may catch a wave and actually surf for about 2 to 2.5 minutes. So you have to be willing to watch the waves coming at you for 3 hours to enjoy the 2 or the 2.5 minutes of surfing. That's why life is fundamentally about preparation. It's 99% preparation, 1% action. This is the favorite part of my life, this 1 hour that I'm up here. But I prepare for days and weeks and months for this 1 hour. So sometimes people think I charge too much for my services. The other day, someone said, how can you charge $1,000 to talk for 1 hour? And I go, no, I'm not charging $1,000 for the 1 hour. I'm charging for the 60 years it took me to prepare to be able to deliver the talk in 1 hour. And that's life. So I have a mentor. Her name is Melissa Couliari. She is one of Toronto's leading naturopaths, and she gave me the concept of homeostasis.
Sorry. There's a question from the floor. Where is the LSQ interpreter? We're looking for the French sign language interpreter. We don't see that on the screen. Where is that? It's on a different side than before. Thank you. We'll need to move so that we can access your presentation.
Right, so what we just witnessed here is life, right? Everything is planned, everything is going according to plan, and then we realize it's not. And we have to solve a problem. And am I right that the problem is now being resolved? Are we good? All right, very good. So what just happened here happens everywhere. And it's just part of life's rhythm. I also like the sound of little baby crying in the background, because that made it even more real. So you just embrace whatever the reality is, and you know that. So Melissa Couliari gave me this wonderful concept of homeostasis. And she defines homeostasis as a self-regulating process by which we maintain internal equilibrium while adjusting to external conditions. It is dynamic and different for each person depending on their mindset, physiology, and life situations. So on the screen, there is a visual of Melissa, wonderful woman. But everyone in this room, and I mean every person individually, needs to find their own way to achieve inner equilibrium. Because we can only face external challenges because of the internal balance or the internal stability we create for ourselves. So I would like you to think for a moment about a ritual that you go through every day, not a routine. A routine is something we don't think about. A ritual is something we do mindfully. So some of you in this room, you may meditate. Some of you may pray. Some of you may just enjoy listening to music. Some of you may take your dog for a walk. Some of you may want to play with your children or your grandchildren. Some of you may tell the people who you live with that you love them. Some of you have certain foods that you celebrate and that you enjoy. Some of you have a certain thing that you do first thing in the morning when you wake up. My ritual every morning is I like to complete the 10-minute crossword in the Globe and Mail, a local newspaper in Canada. If I can complete the 10-minute crossword, even if it takes me an hour or two, I feel a sense of accomplishment for the rest of the day. And I usually get to within one word and then I cheat and I Google the final clue. But if I can complete that 10-minute crossword Monday to Friday, I feel empowered to face the rest of my day. So identify your inner liberating ritual. Find your homeostasis and then take that equilibrium with you into the world. And when people are with you, they should feel your sense of calm. They should feel your sense of inner confidence and composure. I always want to make sure that if I'm in a meeting with people, I should be a source of homeostasis, not a source of disruption or disequilibrium. How many of you have noticed there are certain people in your life that you love being with? And then there are other people in your life that can freak you out a little bit. These are people who are sources of stress, not happiness. And you cannot give what you do not have. If you do not create homeostasis, you cannot give other people homeostasis. So, of all the slides I share with you, this is one of my favorites. Now, on the slide, there is a visual of Canadian athletes, and on top of that slide is a number, 2871. And then on the other side of the slide, there's a visual of 3 medals, gold, silver, and bronze. And above that visual, there's a number 109. Now, what does that mean? It means at the 2022 Beijing Olympics, there were 2,871 world-class athletes competing for 109 gold medals. What does that mean? Well, it means that less than 4% of these athletes could expect to return home with a gold medal. And even if you take the silver and the bronze medal, it means that less than 10% of athletes would leave the Olympics with any kind of winning, which means that 90% of athletes who train at the highest level for 4 years to win a medal will return home with nothing. What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is be prepared to be disappointed. But do not allow that disappointment to destroy you. There is not a single person in this room who has not encountered some level of disappointment. But if you're in this room, you have not allowed that disappointment to destroy you. So disappointment is healthy. Disappointment means you've set your sights high, but to allow it to destroy you is not. It means that you underestimate your powers of resilience. So I actually go looking to be disappointed. You're looking at a man who looks for reasons to be disappointed. You know why? Because if I'm searching, if I'm striving, if I'm aspiring to achieve audacious, ambitious goals, I'm going to hear a lot of no's. I'm going to encounter losses. I'm going to be defeated more often than I win. And so when I win, one win to me is worth 20 losses. And I know if you're in this room, you can identify with that emotion. But from this day onwards, I'd like you to like the word, love the word no. Because no is what you hear before you hear the word yes. If you get a yes without too many no's, well, then that yes came too easy. By going through the no's, by going through the disappointments, we build the muscle to achieve significant yeses. Now, on the screen, there's a photograph of myself and the amazing Andre de Grasse, the World Olympic gold 200 medal winner. I recently presented at a conference where he was at, and he gave me his favorite quote. He said, "Never let success go to your head, and never let failure go to your heart. Never become arrogant, but never lose faith in your ability to get to the yes." All right. So far, we've spoken about 2 potentiator practices. Know your game and build robust resilience. Now we get to number 3. And I think this potentiator practice is a quality demonstrated by the members of the deaf-blind international community. And that is courage. You're willing to go where you haven't gone before. You're willing to take on your fear. And creativity. Creativity means you are taking things that don't usually belong together and you are bringing them together. Or you are taking existing ingredients and you creating a new recipe. So if you are a chef or you are a cook, then there are moments you've created your own recipes. If you are a writer, there are moments where you have put words together in a way that no one else has. If you create the technology to enable people to communicate and connect with each other, then you have demonstrated creativity. And why we need courageous creativity is that any time we do something we haven't done before, there is a chance of failure. So we need that courage. Creativity without courage doesn't lead to anything. Courage and creativity leads to breakthroughs. So, is there anyone in this room who likes walk into a bar jokes? Who likes walk into a bar jokes? Right. Now you're probably thinking, what a weird question. Walk into a bar jokes. But let me give you some of my favorite walk into a bar jokes. So, an empty bottle walks into a bar, and the bartender says to the bottle, "I cannot serve you. You are already drunk." A $5 bill walks into a bar. The bartender says, "I cannot serve you. This is a singles bar." A ham and cheese sandwich walks into a bar. Bartender looks at the sandwich and says, "We don't serve food here." A duck walks into a bar, orders a beer. The bartender says to the duck, "How are you going to pay?" The duck says, "Just put it on my bill." Okay, final one. A horse walks into a bar. The bartender looks at the horse and says, "Why the long face?" Okay. Now you're probably thinking, why was he telling me these jokes? Because jokes are the ultimate expression of courageous creativity. I told you these jokes, maybe they would have fallen flat. But when I told you that an empty bottle walks into a bar, you stayed with me because you wanted the punchline. You didn't say, "Well, Mr. Lipkin, an empty bottle could never walk into a bar, so stop right there." When I told you a duck walks into a bar, you didn't say, "Well, ducks cannot walk into bars." You stayed for the punchline. So what's my point? Well, if you're creative, you suspend your disbelief. You're willing to suspend your doubt or your fear, so you move forward until somebody finds a solution. I know that throughout your lifetime, you have been involved in companies or in attempts or in ventures where someone had an idea, someone had a goal, and then there were people who we call cynics. And what did they say? "That will never happen. Don't even think about that. We tried that before. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now." But then there were the people who were the students and the believers who were willing to suspend their disbelief, and the breakthrough was achieved. So that's what I mean by growing courageous creativity. Now, I am part of a research company, as you heard in the introduction by Diane. It's called the Environics Research Group, and every year we survey thousands of Americans and Canadians. So this slide, which shows some bar charts, is only based on American and Canadian research. But what it says is that only 20% of Canadians have great confidence in their creative ability and power of imagination. Only 1 out of 5 Canadians say, "I have great confidence in my creative ability and power of imagination." About 30% of Americans feel the same way. So either way, if you feel like you have got creative ability, and if you feel like you have got powers of imagination, you have an immediate advantage over between 60 and 80% of the population. And I know that everyone in this room at some point demonstrated their power of creativity. So I want you to say to yourself right now, "I have great confidence in my creative ability and power of imagination. I have great confidence in my creative ability and powers of imagination." Can you feel it? Or is it just me? Okay. So creativity thrives in a beginner's mind. As you remember, my very first slide was "It's always day one." And if it's always day one, well then we're always beginners. So I want to share with you what we have discovered as a result of our research that comprises what we call 6 stages of new. Now, I want you to think about it. All of us are in the business of managing new. It's called managing change. And so on any given day, you are going to go through these 6 stages. And I'll walk you through them. The very first stage is you're a beginner. You brand new. You straight out of the showroom. You fresh, you shiny, and you are sparkling. You are shiny, just like a brand new vehicle coming out of the showroom. And I know that you are familiar with a concept called beginner's luck. Why are beginners lucky? You know why? Because they don't know that it cannot be done, so they do it. They have a very poorly developed sense of the odds against them. They are enthusiastic, they're passionate, and so they take action. So the next stage is you will have breakthroughs. Breakthroughs are God's way of encouraging beginners to keep going. However, life is not fantasy. Life involves some walls, some obstacles, some shocks. And so at some point, no matter who you are, you're going to hit the wall. The wall is an acute moment. So this morning we heard about the planning for this event, and then the middle of March happened, 2020, and the world went through a shock. The world hit the wall. But as the people in this room know, walls are just there to keep uncommitted people out. Walls are just there to keep uncommitted people out. I'll tell you a funny story from my native South Africa. So I came to Canada 21 years ago from Johannesburg, South Africa. And when I lived in Johannesburg, I lived in a high crime area. So a significant percentage of my income was invested in security. So I had a security advisor who told me what I should put up in terms of burglar alarms and bars and high fences. But then he said to me, he said, "Mr. Lipkin, just so you know, if a burglar is really committed and skilled, they will get through everything that I'm charging you for. However," he said, "our research shows that only 1% of burglars are truly committed. So this should serve you. And I know you are the 1% that are truly committed." So then you get to the stage of consolidation. I would love you to see the next 3 days as a way of reviewing your experience, resetting your sights for the future, and then preparing to re-engage in your communities when you leave. The fifth stage is when you achieve mastery. This is a beautiful stage. This is when you've mastered the skills, you're in control of your world, and other people are coming to you for advice. This is always going to be a very short phase, because people who think that they are masters will not be masters very long. So what happens is, once you go through mastery, then you will hit the plateau phase. The plateau phase is when you feel tired, you feel fatigued, you feel a little stale, and it's inevitable. The difference between the plateau and the wall is an acute shock. The plateau is a chronic condition. So when you feel like you're plateauing, when you feel like you've lost your mojo or your excitement or your passion, it's time to become a beginner all over again. And the quicker you can go through the cycle, the more enjoyment you're going to have, the more breakthroughs you will create. And that's why, for a range of reasons, but one of the reasons I'm a happy individual is I know I'm always a beginner. I know that whatever I'm telling you right now is just my opinion. So don't agree with me. Just don't disagree with me. Be open. Because as someone once said, in the expert's mind, there are few options. In the beginner's mind, there are many options, so be a beginner. Now, on the screen, there is an illustration of a figure that's like David with his slingshot versus Goliath with his spear. And traditionally, David was always seen as the underdog, and Goliath was always seen as the favorite to win this fight because Goliath was huge. He was an experienced warrior. He had long, fierce spears, and David was just a little shepherd boy with some pebbles in his slingshot. But the truth is that Goliath was always the underdog because David was using next generation technology. David could take out Goliath from 200 feet away. Goliath needed to get up close and personal with his spear. So what's the moral of the story? Well, everyone in this room, and maybe more people in this room than many other audiences I've spoken to, has a Goliath that you need to slay, has a nemesis or a boogeyman that frightens you. But I will tell you, it's your Goliath, it's your boogeyman, it's your fear that fuels your creativity. You're looking at a man who 30 years ago suffered from severe clinical depression. I actually had electroconvulsive therapy in South Africa at the beginning of 1991 to get my sanity back. And that's why over the last 30 years I've been doing this work as a way of sustaining my own motivation while I motivate others. So my Goliath is depression. And for me, that depression could come at any moment. And that's why a lot of what I share with you today, I have tested. I have experimented with myself and found that it works. So we all have a Goliath that we need to slay. And once we slay that Goliath, we take our creativity to a whole new level. All right. So we're into the fourth potentiator practice. Communicate like a champion. The first potentiator practice was know your game. The second potentiator practice is build robust resilience. The third potentiator practice is grow courageous creativity. And now we get to the fourth practice, which is communicate like a champion. When I talk about champion, I don't mean number one. I mean someone who is passionate about a cause bigger than themselves. Someone who is committed to defending or advocating for others. People like the folks who are here. So I will share with you what I've learned as a professional speaker when it comes to communicating like a champion. It's very simple, but very powerful. Now, I have a mentor. My mentor is a wonderful speaker called T.D. Jakes. T.D. Jakes is a preacher out of Dallas. I am not a religious man. I don't even share the same faith as T.D. Jakes. So when I listen to T.D. Jakes speak, I strip away the theology and I just listen to his message. So go onto YouTube and either watch or listen or experience T.D. Jakes. He has translated his talks into every medium, catering to every person. But here's what he said. Silence is not golden, and it surely doesn't mean consent. So start practicing the art of communication. If you have something to say, then say it. Find a way to get your point across, because someone is waiting for you to make that point, especially in this community. Communication is about confidence. And someone asked me, what does confidence really mean when we say you need confidence? Well, the best way I can define confidence is confidence sounds like it has earned the right to be there. So it was amazing for me when I listened to Diane introduce me and get her technology in order and get her braille in order. And Diane backstage was sharing her stories of presenting to big groups. And Diane didn't always have the confidence that you saw today. But when Diane got up here today, we all knew she sounded like she had earned the right to be here, because she has. You've earned the right to be here. So, in a nutshell, I want to give you 4 very simple ways to communicate like a champion. This woman's name is Dr. Beth Abramson. There's an illustration on the slide of a doctor, and her name is Beth Abramson. Beth Abramson again saved my life. In addition to my psychological challenges, I had a very high cholesterol level because of my family history. So I was referred to Beth Abramson, who's one of Canada's leading authorities on cardiac health. And she's also renowned for her ability to communicate. And Beth prescribed a therapy to me called Repatha, that is a bi-monthly injection that has taken my cholesterol level down by 50%. So because of Beth and her care of me, I now stand a very good chance of making it to 100. And if you were to ask me what my ultimate goal is, on my 100th birthday, I want to be on a stage motivating somebody somewhere. I want to be the world's oldest motivational speaker who is still young at heart. But anyway, here are the 4 insights according to Dr. Beth Abramson that will enable you to communicate like a champion. Number 1, in your communication, be clear. And I discovered something very interesting yesterday. I did a workshop with leaders of DBI, and I was informed that sign language, by definition, needs to be efficient, needs to be simple, needs to be clear. So Frank, thank you for that conversation. So you want to be very clear in your communication. Keep it simple, keep it clear. The A is speak or communicate with authority. You've earned the right to be there. Let people hear how much you believe in your point of view. And sometimes you may need to communicate with a confidence or an authority you don't always feel. So today, it may seem like this is easy for me, but I have been acting and I've been authentic at the same time. Sometimes you need to act with an authority you don't always feel, because if you talk with authority, the more you talk with authority or the more you communicate with authority, the more authoritative you will feel. Emotion comes from motion. The R is reassuring. We are living through very chaotic times, scary times. There's not a single person I'm working with that isn't experiencing a high degree of uncertainty. People must feel reassured by their connection with you. People must feel as though they are safer, they are stronger, they are more secure, or more able because you are part of their team. And then finally, your communication must empower people to take action. When you communicate with people, share an insight, share a strategy, share a technique, share an action that will help them empower themselves. So that's C-A-R-E, clarity, authoritative, reassuring, and empowering. All right. So those are the first 4 potentiator practices. Know your game, build robust resilience, grow courageous creativity, communicate like a champion, and now the final potentiator practice, what this conference is all about, cultivating close connections, building your network. So I want to share with you 2 slides that are from a recent issue of the Harvard Business Review that are all about networking. The future in our hands, global connections with each other. And the first one seems to be counterintuitive. But on the slide, there's a visual of some characters, and then there's this quote. The way to succeed at networking is to reach out broadly to people who can help. The way to fail is to limit your contacts to the few people you know well. So let me repeat that. The way to succeed at networking is to reach out broadly to people who can help. The way to fail is to limit your contacts to the few people you know well. So networking means reaching out to people, not waiting for them to reach out to you. This is a golden opportunity for you to connect with as many people as possible over the next 3 days. My understanding is that there are 510 delegates to this conference, give or take. So make it your challenge to leave here with another 509 names. What would that take? Those people want you to reach out to them. You can learn from them, they can learn from you, but own the fact that you will reach out to them. You're not just going to wait for someone to reach out to you. Now, some people in this room are introverts. You prefer to observe. You are quiet. You don't enjoy being in the spotlight. Some of you are extroverts. You may like the spotlight. Like me, you may like the sound of your own voice. It doesn't matter whether you introvert or extrovert, meet the other person more than halfway. And all of us in this room, we want to make a difference for deaf-blind. So I'm going to share with you 5 ways to network with people who can help you make a difference. So number 1, if you want to reach out to someone who is an influencer or a center of excellence, find someone who can recommend you to that other person. I know that many of you in this room are on LinkedIn. If I want to reach out to someone who's not part of my network, I look for the people who are part of my network who are connected to this person, and I ask them to recommend me. If someone recommends you to somebody else, you have a much higher chance of that person talking to you. Number 2, if you want to network with people, play up your similarities, demonstrate how similar you are to them. Hopefully today, I demonstrated to you how similar I am to everyone in this room. I have my challenges, you have your challenges. Together, we will vanquish them. We will achieve what we want to achieve. Number 3, bring value. If you network with people, come with the gift of knowledge, come with the gift of insight. Whenever I reach out to someone, I always want to give them more than I get from them. And my message to you is, you have no idea how much value you can bring. I literally have to bring people value because that's how I make a living. But all of us in this room are trading value. So if you want to reach out to someone, if you want to network or build connections, find out what they want most and then be the person who can bring it to them. Number 4 is a fun one. Use flattery. The more accomplished somebody is, the more senior someone is, the more they enjoy being flattered. They are egotistical, and that's okay. I don't judge. So here's one of my favorite quotes. Flatter people because even if they know you are flattering them, they will be flattered that you think they are worth flattering. Right, but do it genuinely. So the reason why I'm here today is there's a legendary meeting and event planner called Betty Ann Scherer. I see her sitting at the back. I did a program for CanSPEP, a Canadian Event Planners Association, about 2 years ago. Betty Ann liked my message. She brought me here today, and she's extraordinary. She's amazing. Now, I'm flattering her. She knows I'm flattering her, and she knows she's worth flattering. And everything I've said is true if you know Betty Ann. And if you don't know Betty Ann, make sure you meet her over the next few days. And then finally, be persistent. Don't give up. I know I don't need to tell you that, but oftentimes you can call somebody over and over again, they don't respond until they do. Never ever give up. Keep on reaching out to the other person. Okay, so this is my second last slide. And I talk about building fame. If you're in this room and you're about building this global community, you want to build your fame. Now, fame stands for fans. The F in fame is fans. People who like you. Now, I have a lot of fans. They like my posts. It doesn't mean anything to me. I can't take their liking to the bank. The A is people who like you, but now who talk about you. So an advocate is someone who likes you and actually talks about you to others. But an advocate may not make an impact if they don't have leverage in their community. The M is a mobilizer. That is an advocate who can move people on your behalf. So a mobilizer is someone like Betty Ann for me, who likes me, who talks about me, and who can make a difference for me. Your success will be a function of how many mobilizers you can build. Now, at the highest level, there's an evangelizer. That is someone who is vocal about you. They believe in you so much. They support you just as they would support themselves. So that's fame. And you'll see the phrase, no blockers allowed. Sometimes it just is not going to work. Don't get upset if somebody doesn't like you. That's always going to happen. So build your fame, but most importantly, go for the mobilizers. So look, I've shared a lot with you over the past hour. We've spoken about the 5 Potentiator Practices. We've spoken about know your game, build robust resilience, grow courageous creativity, communicate like a champion, and cultivate close connections. It's been an honor and a privilege to share my thoughts with you. And my final message is this: do not walk behind me because I may not lead. And do not walk in front of me because I may not follow. Walk beside me and let's create this future together. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for your time and your attention. Thank you. Merci. Monty,
Yeah,
you're an amazing man.
thank you.
I'm just flattering you because you're worth flattering.
Thank you, Mike. That was amazing. I feel the potential in the room has just increased by 1,000%. My name is Monty Hardy, CEO of the Bob Rumble Center and proud sponsor of our opening keynote this morning. What a great way to kick off our time together. Mike, please accept this small gift as a token of our appreciation. The Bob Rumble Foundation raises support for the programs and services provided by the Bob Rumble organizations, serving over 500 people and employ 250 staff, of whom 50% are deaf. The Bob Rumble Association are unique, one-of-a-kind services providing services to the deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind communities. In 1960, the late Reverend Bob Rumble opened doors to a barrier-free environment for deaf children and adults, including deaf-blind people who have developmental delays. From its starting point as a community center, the Bob Rumble Canadian Centre of Excellence for the Deaf has expanded over time and now includes residential facilities in Toronto and Milton, the Ontario Camp for the Deaf in Parry Sound, and the Bob Rumble Home for the Deaf in Barrie. Our programs are extensive and open to all who require our services. The foundation exists to support the work of BRCCED. Our mission, vision, and core values. Our mission is to provide care and opportunities in a communication-rich environment that enhances the quality of life of those we serve. Our vision is to offer diverse supports and services while respecting and preserving the language, cultural, and heritage to those we serve. Our core values are well-being, empowerment, communication, accountability, respect, and education. So now we will enjoy a 30-minute refreshment break in the foyer outside this room. During this break, please visit with our exhibitors, and Group A posters will also be presented. Our first set of concurrent sessions will commence promptly at 11 a.m. If you are participating in session 1A, it will be here in this room. All other meeting rooms are located on the second floor. Following the session, we will all meet back here in Canada Hall 1 at 12 noon for our first plenary session, Regulating Accessibility and Searching for Inclusion, the Potential and Limits of the Law. Our featured speaker is Michael Gauthier from the Canadian Human Rights Commission, and our thanks to the plenary sponsor, Centre Jules Leger. Thank you and enjoy your morning.